My name is Julia Marston. At 34, my life is a landscape of predictable, comforting order. I live in Pinecrest Meadows, Oregon, where the mist hangs in the Douglas firs like a permanent sigh, and the quiet hum of suburbia is the only soundtrack I need, except for the weekly HOA email reminding everyone that lawn height must be precisely 2.5 inches or face a $50 fine. By profession, I'm an internal auditor for HOA Karen, a private healthcare corporation. My days are spent in the clean, sterile world of numbers, tracing capital, spotting discrepancies, and making sure every dollar is accounted for. I find solace in the logic of a balanced spreadsheet, in the irrefutable truth of a reconciled account. My job is to mitigate risk. It's a skill I mistakenly believed I could apply to life in an HOA-controlled neighborhood. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was deep into a quarterly review when my phone buzzed with a number I knew too well: Karen Hensley, president of the Pinecrest Meadows Homeowners Association. Her voice was all sugar and steel. "Julia, darling, the board has been talking. My son Zach has this brilliant vision for a community cafe right in the common area, the Salty Bean. It'll boost property values, bring everyone together, but we need a little seed money from someone who understands finance. You're our resident numbers genius. $75,000 would get us off the ground." I leaned back, already running the cold audit in my head. $75,000 was a chunk of my savings, my safety net. Karen's tone shifted to that fake concerned lilt every Karen masters. "Think of the community, Julia," refusing to look selfish. "We all sacrifice for Pinecrest Meadows." The classic pivot. When logic failed, she appealed to neighborhood guilt I didn't know. I knew the next step. The emergency board meeting where Karen would smile sweetly while painting me as the holdout who hated progress. That evening, the board gathered at Karen's McMansion. She operated on pure emotion when it suited her. "Zach is trying so hard," she sighed, eyes glistening on cue. Her husband nodded like a trained seal. "Look, Julia, you're good with money, but sometimes you have to look past the spreadsheets. This is about family, community. You've done well at that corporate job. It's only right you give back." They weren't asking for a business proposal. They were demanding I subsidize Karen's son's dream while she enforced absurd rules on everyone else. No flags over 3 feet. No unapproved flower colors. Mailboxes painted only HOA beige. Saying no wasn't financial. It was treason against the neighborhood. Against my better judgment, I caved. But my auditor brain demanded a firewall. "I'll do it," I told them. "But we do this officially. I'm setting up an LLC, JH Holdings LLC. It stays in my name. I'm a sole signatory. It protects us both." Karen's smile never reached her eyes. But Zach was too desperate to care. He saw the LLC as proof the neighborhood finally took him seriously. I saw it as the only thing standing between my life savings and his inevitable flop. I flew the paperwork to the bank, signed the loan guarantee, and wired the $75,000. Karen hugged me so tight I could smell her overpowering lavender air freshener. I felt only cold dread. For the first few months, Zach's updates were giddy, then sporadic. Blame the weather, the suppliers, the haters who don't appreciate artisanal pastries. I watched the bank statements online. The money bled on miscellaneous expenses, ghost payroll, cash withdrawals with no receipts. 8 months later, the Salty Bean was shuttered. The Italian espresso machine sold for pennies. Zach slunk back with a tan and excuses. The $75,000 vanished. When I tried a post-mortem at the next board meeting, Karen boomed, face red, "For God's sake, Julia, leave the boy alone. He feels bad enough. You don't need to rub his face in it with your spreadsheets." The other members nodded like trained puppets. My demand for accountability was framed as cruelty. My prudence was cold corporate energy. So I stopped. I swallowed the acid of "I told you so" I filed the JH Holdings LLC documents in the back of my cabinet, paid the tiny annual fee to keep it active, a quiet reminder of my stupidity, and kept my mouth shut. I did it for the fragile peace of the neighborhood that measured loyalty in silence and fines. It was the first time, and I told myself it would be the last. I was wrong. For 2 years of fragile peace held, I rebuilt my savings, paid the LLC fee, and treated the board with polite distance. Zach laid low, working odd jobs, his grand ambitions seemingly humbled. I allowed myself to believe the lesson stuck, that $75,000 had been tuition. Hope, I've learned, is the most persistent folly. Zach's second coming arrived in late 2021 at the peak of the crypto gold rush. He resurfaced at a special HOA investment seminar held in the community center, eyes gleaming with profit fervor. No more brick and mortar. Blockchain, NFTs, decentralized finance. He was minting pixelated digital art and developing his own token, coin. He pitched it over coffee at Karen's house. Slides projected on her 70-inch TV. It's the future, Julia. No overhead, no rent, pure digital asset. We're building a community fund. The board already loves it. I looked at the 5-page white paper filled with buzzwords copied from failed projects. It was the salty bean again, just abstract and more dangerous. No, I said flatly. Absolutely not. This isn't a business. It's gambling with extra steps. Karen slammed her manicured hand on the table. Here we go again. Miss Corporate Auditor looking down on us regular folks. You don't get it because you're afraid of risk. Her husband backed her, voice dripping condescension. The room turned on me. My warnings were negative energy that hurt property values. I stood and left. Appetite gone. I thought my refusal was a wall. I underestimated their shared delusion. Weeks later, Karen called, voice bright with forced cheer. Julia, we were reviewing the HOA reserve fund. The market's flat. Zach thinks he can double it in a year. He's already started paperwork. A cold spike hit me. Karen, no, that's the neighborhood's emergency money, not venture capital for crypto. She insisted it was brilliant. Her husband had already rolled over $200,000 from their personal retirement accounts they'd quietly funneled into the community pot. I pleaded tax implications, volatility, insanity. It was like talking to a brick wall painted HOA beige. Karen took the money, set up digital wallets, transferred it into Zach's array of worthless tokens and coin. For months, the delusion held. Karen paraded green line charts at board meetings, smug about modern investing. I bit my tongue and waited. The crash came in spring, a cliff. The market imploded. Coin hit zero. The frantic call started. Zach blamed hackers, regulators, FUD. Karen's husband fell silent. Real consequences hit. Massive tax bill. Overdue HOA insurance premiums. Liens threaten on community assets. I couldn't let the entire neighborhood suffer because of their pride. I wrote 2 checks, one to the IRS for the penalty, one to the insurance company, covering arrears and 6 months ahead. Karen cried in shame and relief. Thank you, Julia. I don't know what we'd have done. Zach never mentioned it. Karen looked at me with cold resentment. My stability had become an indictment. From that day, I was no longer the helpful resident. I was the enemy. The phone call that pulled me back came on a Thursday. Karen's voice thin and afraid. Julia, can you come to the community center? Zach needs to talk. It's important. A sick feeling coiled in my stomach. When I arrived, the room smelled of stale coffee and fear. Karen sat in her usual throne-like chair, blanket over her legs, looking diminished. Zach lounged on the couch. Too comfortable. Small talk died. Zach leaned forward, predatory sincerity radiating. The crypto was phase 1. Now we're pivoting to a play-to-earn blockchain game for the neighborhood. Think community rewards. HOA points turned into tokens. Revolutionary. Korean investors are this close. He pinched fingers together. But they want skin in the game. 50,000 final seed round. Karen cleared her throat weakly. It's the last push. Julia. To save everything. They spoke as if anything remained to save. I reached into my purse. Pulled out the folded list I'd prepared weeks ago. Line items. JH Holdings LLC. Salty Bean Bailout, $75,000. HOA Reserve Crypto lost $212,450. IRS penalty paid by me, $38,200. Cumulative loss over $325,000. This is what you're asking me to add to, I said calmly. You're asking for $50,000 to fund a project built on the ashes of over $300,000 of neighborhood money. My money. The reserve fund. Your retirement. Zach stared as if the paper spoke a foreign language. Karen's face twisted. That's not fair. You can't look at it like that. I interrupted, voice hardening. Furthermore, remember JH Holdings LLC? The company I formed to protect the cafe project. It's still active, and I'm still sole owner. Any business using its name could be tied to it. I will not have my legal entity associated with this. The answer is no. That was the spark. The mention of the LLC sent Karen into rage. The weakened president vanished. An incensed tyrant took her place. You selfish little witch, she spat, struggling upright. After everything the board has done for you, approving your driveway color, letting you keep that ugly bird feeder, you sit here with your goddamn list, judging us. You want to see the neighborhood fail just so you could be right. The room froze. I didn't raise my voice. I'm not judging. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. I stood, purse in hand. As I turned toward the door, Karen lunged with surprising speed. You don't walk away from me. The slap was shockingly loud, a wet, sharp crack that sucked the air from the room. My head snapped sideways. Electric pain bloomed across my cheek. For a second, there was only the high-pitched ringing in my ears. I touched my face, fingers tracing immediate swelling, the hot throb of broken capillaries. I looked at Karen, chest heaving, face crimson, then at the other board members frozen like statues. No one moved. No one spoke. Her silence from the others was a second blow. Deeper betrayal. In that instant, I saw with soul-crushing clarity that in this family, neighborhood, I was utterly alone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. The pain receded, replaced by Arctic calm. This was the end of trying, the end of forgiving, the end of setting myself on fire to keep their rules warm. I lowered my hand, looked from Karen's enraged face to the complicit stares, said nothing, turned and walked out into the cold Oregon air, closing the door quietly. The war was over. It was time to audit the damages. I don't remember the first miles home. My mind was white static. The only thought was the rhythmic throb from jaw to temple. My hand pressed against the cheek, not to soothe, but to confirm the violation was real. Then the tears came, hot, silent tears of pure rage. Rage at Karen for the violence, at Zach for parasitic greed, at the board for complicity. Mostly rage at myself for every time I stayed quiet. Wrote another check, chose their fragile peace over truth. By the time I turned on my street, the storm passed. My training took the wheel. An auditor collects data, assesses risk, identifies noncompliance. The throbbing cheek was now a data point. The event was an incident with perpetrator, victim, witness. I walked straight to the bathroom, flicked on bright vanity lights. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, left eye swelling, livid red handprint blossoming into a spectacular bruise. For distinct, fingers darkening. Ugly. Proof. My stylish, minimalist black frame glasses were more than prescription. A gift from an ex. A cybersecurity engineer. They recorded 4K POV video. Just in case you need to document a hostile takeover, he'd joked. I charged them last night out of habit. Heart hammering, I connected the magnetic cable to my laptop. An external drive appeared. Single folder. Today's date. Single video file. I clicked play. The footage was jarringly clear. My own POV, the coffee table, the damning list of numbers. My calm voice. Then the camera panned to Karen's face, contorting with rage. I watched her eyes. Watched myself stand and turn. The blur of motion, her arms swinging. The sickening crack of impact. My mother's, no. The board members, gasp. Irrefutable. Unambiguous. I had her, but I needed the legal framework. My mind leaped from assault to the root problem. The money. The LLC. I remembered the lawyer's contingency from 2020. I opened old emails. Found Arthur Vance's note. The operating agreement contained Clause 17. Should any party misuse the company's name, credit, or standing causing personal or financial damages, I had unilateral right to freeze all accounts, lines of credit, and suspend the EIN pending audit. Personal damages. Karen had just handed me the key. The slap wasn't just assault. It was the trigger. Her violence justified invoking the kill switch on the entity they still saw as a piggy bank. I created a new encrypted folder, Clause 17, dragging the video, the lawyer's email, my bruised face selfie I'd taken in the mirror. The audit had begun. The rest of the night was cold. Focused activity. I re-established digital dominion over JH Holdings LLC. IRS portal, sole member. Me. Bank dashboard, small balance remained. But recent activity chilled me. 6 months ago, after the crypto wipeout, small payments started trickling out. Web hosting, graphic design for game logo, 3 $150 transfers labeled consulting fee to Karen's personal account. She was stealing from the LLC I controlled. Wire fraud. I downloaded statements, highlighted every fraudulent transfer, then emails. Zach signing as CEO, JH Gaming Division. Karen advising him to use the LLC to appear legitimate to Korean investors. She never uses it anymore. Better we put it to good use. Premeditated misuse. I scanned the original operating agreement. Sole member, Julia Marston. My signature. No amendments. Fortress of proof complete. I need a shark, not a mediator. Found Dana Strickland, specialist in hostile disputes and asset recovery. At 2:17 a.m., I emailed her the dossier in a password-protected zip. Sole member 2025. Retainer signed by morning. The machine was operational. Dana's response was brutally efficient. Evidence reviewed. Position unequivocal. $5,000 deposit wired. Within one business day, the first salvo launched. Formal courier letter to Karen's address. Copied to Zach and the board. Cease and desist all activities associated with JH Holdings LLC. Clause 17 invoked. Accounts frozen pending forensic audit. Misuse documented. Fraudulent transfers. Willful misrepresentation of authority. Personal damages via assault. I imagined the courier arriving while Karen recovered in her recliner. Zach tearing open the envelope as his Korean investor fantasies dissolved in cold legal prose. They weren't negotiating. They were being informed of a verdict already rendered. Tuesday morning, I opened the Oregon Department of Revenue Fraud Reporting portal. I wasn't reporting my own company. I was reporting the individuals who hijacked it. Carl, no. Karen Hensley receiving undocumented consulting fees from JH Holdings LLC with no agreement or duties performed. Unreported income. Zach Marston utilizing LLC identity to solicit investments and pay startup expenses for unrelated venture. Misrepresentation. Attached highlighted bank records and emails. Submitted. Confirmation. Report 73,451 assigned to investigator. I had just unleashed a state bloodhound more relentless than any lawyer. Next, I deactivated the EIN voluntarily, pending internal investigation for fraudulent activity. The digital gates locked. No new accounts. No loans. No legitimacy using my LLC. Finally, the bank VP called. Verbal confirmation from the sole signatory. All funds frozen. Debit cards deactivated. Any attempt to access will trigger authorities. The trap sprang. In 72 hours, I had dismantled their operation with a laptop, a folder, and the law. They lost the vehicle for their scam. The illusion of legitimacy sold to investors. Everything because they thought I was a resource, not an auditor who kept records. The silence from their end lasted 48 hours. Charged. Heavy. Lightning before strike silence. I spent it working, cleaning, sleeping dreamlessly for the first time in years. Then the storm hit. My phone buzzed. Karen's number. I let it ring to voicemail. Raw fury filled my kitchen. Julia, you have no idea what you've done. You're destroying the neighborhood. Call this off or you'll regret it. Deleted. Next call. Diluted bargaining. I was angry, but Zach's investors were wiring this week. Fix this or you're no longer welcome at community events. Deleted. Late night plea. Wheezing. Pathetic. My heart, this stress, you're killing me. I listened twice for analytical curiosity, then enabled call recording. The next afternoon, a knock. Through the peephole, a board member who had always played the mom role, shoulders slumped, face tear-stained. She sobbed on my porch. How could you? Karen's sick. The accounts are frozen. Investors gone. You did this. I held the threshold like a barrier. It was never just about money. You were there. You saw the slap. She put her hands on me because I refused to be robbed a third time. And you all stood there and said nothing. She wailed the ultimate excuse. She was upset. She didn't mean it. I stated the fact. She hit me. And you did nothing. The old Julia, who fixed everything, wanted to comfort her. The ghost sting on my cheek killed that urge. I have bailed out projects, paid penalties, stayed silent while you enabled her and insulted me. I will not be the neighborhood ATM or punching bag. I am done. She stared as if seeing a stranger. You're choosing rules over community. No, I said, eyes locked. I'm choosing me. I closed the door gently and slid the deadbolt. An hour later, Zach's email. All caps, illegal seizure of my company. Threats of lawsuit for millions. I forwarded to Dana without a word. My shield was in place. Let the shark handle the minnow. The meeting was set for Wednesday in the bank's glass-walled conference room downtown. Sterile. Intimidating. Neutral ground where neighborhood history meant nothing. I arrived with Dana 5 minutes early. She radiated lethal competence in charcoal suit. I wore simple black, present as owner. Zach arrived late. Deliberate power move that failed. Hair mess, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. Alone, no attorneys. The bank VP, Mr. Davies, began, purpose to clarify signatory authority. Zach launched. This is my company. She has no right. Corporate sabotage. Dana lets silence hang. Then slid the bound dossier across the table. Tab A. Operating Agreement. Sole member me. Tab B. Articles of Organization. Tab C. IRS EIN Confirmation. Tab D. Email showing Zach signing as CEO. Tab E. Bank statements with Karen's consulting fees. Dana's voice cut like ice. Mr. Marston has the same legal authority over this entity as the gentleman who valets my car. None at all. The term for those transfers is embezzlement. Zach's face drained to pasty white. Mr. Davies closed the file. Documentation conclusive. Administrative hold now permanent. You are no longer authorized. This is formal notice of trespass. Any attempt will notify authorities. Zach sank. Fight gone. Dana and I stood. I didn't look at him. I simply walked out, leaving him to contemplate the unassailable truth of paperwork. The fallout unfolded as quiet, devastating implosions monitored from safe distance. My firewall held. I watched system alerts as their world burned. First, thick envelope from Oregon Department of Revenue arrived at Karen's address. Dana received courtesy copy. My fraud report had landed on investigator Mr. Peterson's desk. He followed the money beyond my claim into the fraudulent hardship withdrawal Karen's husband had filed 2 years earlier, claiming funds for uninsurable repairs while wiring everything to crypto exchanges. Perjury on federal tax documents. Subpoenaed records prove the lie. Judgment swift. Tax evasion. Original taxes plus back interest plus 75% civil fraud penalty. Staggering $137,850 owed. Almost exactly what I had paid to cover their first delinquency. Poetic. Worse. Permanent bar from future retirement contributions. At their age, with bad health and no savings. Financially destitute. The stress proved too much. Karen's husband back in hospital. Real heart attack this time. Survived, but a shadow. Frail invalid. The tyrant deposed not by me, but by consequences of her own signature on a fraudulent form. Zach's demise was absolute. With LLC gone, legitimacy severed. Korean investors vanished. No company, no account, no product. Debt from coffee shop, credit cards, lifetime irresponsibility. 2 weeks after the bank meeting. Public notice in legal section. Chapter 7 bankruptcy filing. Petitioner Zachary L. Marston. The visionary reduced to a line item in court docket. The phone calls, emails, knock stopped. The low-grade anxiety that had been background noise for years switched off. My home quiet. Finances secure. Mind clear. World orderly and just. No joy in destruction. Only profound peace. The audit complete. Accounts reconciled. Risk mitigated. Weeks passed in blessed silence. Dana's final invoice paid. Files closed. Life returned to predictable rhythms, but deeper, built on solid boundaries. I excelled at work, reconnected with friends, hiked misty Oregon forests. The bruise faded, but clarity remained. One loose end. Monday morning, a month after Zach's bankruptcy notice. I woke before dawn, made coffee, sat at dining table, opened laptop. Folder final statement held 3 files. First, bathroom mirror selfie the night of the slap. Red handprint violent proof. Renamed Exhibit A, personal damages JPG. Second, bank fraud department letter confirming permanent account restriction. Exhibit B, account seizure confirmation PDF. Third, Oregon Secretary of State Certificate of Dissolution for JH Holdings LLC. Exhibit C, dissolution PDF. New email to Karen, Zach, and the board member who had cried on my porch. Subject, final reconciliation, JH Holdings LLC. Body, 3 short statements. The first time I saved you. The second time I was silent. The third time I chose myself. Attached, the 3 exhibits. Clock read 7:03 a.m. I knew Karen poured her first coffee at precisely 7:04 every weekday. At 7:04, I clicked send. No adrenaline, only quiet finality. Last word written. Last number entered. I did not wait for reply. Opened phone contacts. Blocked Karen. Blocked Zach. Hovered over the board member's name. Thought of her standing frozen. Complicit. Deep breath. Blocked. Deleted. Same in email. Filters auto-delete any message from them. Firewall complete. Last access sealed. I stood, coffee in hand. Walked to window. Sun higher. Breaking through mist. Glinting off damp leaves. Just another Monday. Beginning of my new, quiet, orderly life. The book's balanced. The audit closed. Thank you so much for listening to this HOA Karen story. We'd love to know where you're tuning in from. So drop a comment below with your city or country and let us know your thoughts on Julia's final move. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing and giving the video a like. And if you really want to support us and help more people find these satisfying HOA dramas, hit that hype button. It makes a huge difference.